All right. Good day. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday morning. I am joined by Bob Jarrett. I almost said Jarrett Bob. My goodness. Can't make it up. Um, on today's episode, um, last week or 2 weeks ago, when we started having the conversation about starting a trucking company, I got some additional questions and there seems to have been some popularity. So here we are back again talking about it. And so, yeah, Bob, tell us a little bit also too about the article series that you have coming out regarding this topic.
Okay, well, first, good day. It's nice to see you again. It's been a couple of weeks since we actually spoke.
Mhm.
So, one of the things I've done in my career, at least the last 15 years, is I've worked with owner operators as independent drivers that are contracted to another company, and owner operators with their own DOT authority. So, and with that, I've consulted with them, helped them with their financing, their finance management, their tax filings, their DOT compliance along the way, depending on where they were at, as well as their insurances. So, after all those years of doing it and everything, and with plenty of experience, I thought that it might be a good idea that I write a book or a manual that helps walk people through the process of becoming an owner operator, particularly with their own authority. And the reason for that is some of the changes that we see happening with California and their AB5 law, and the way that they're essentially saying that if there's a carrier that has their own equipment and their own employees, can't hire on owner operators as independent contractors because that makes them employees. So there was two ways around this: that they could lease the truck and the company could pay a lease payment for whatever those terms are for the truck, and then they pay the driver of that truck or the independent contractor as an employee, which then causes additional employees, so additional taxes, all these things that come out of there, and then somehow I think overall that's going to end up reducing those wages. So,
Well, let me ask you
yeah,
this real quick.
sure.
What for people who are watching who potentially have no idea, are just in the infancy stages of figuring out starting a trucking company, can you define, because you said before that you're specifically with their own authority, the difference between having your own authority and not? Or is that kind of in line with what you're just saying?
Well, it kind of is, but yeah, let's go
Okay.
into that a little bit. Okay, so owner operator with their own DOT authority means that they filed to have their own DOT number and then MC number, or their motor carrier number, and then with that they have the proper auto liability policy, cargo insurance in place in order for them to be able to be a for hire carrier, meaning that they can work for a shipper, or a broker, that they're a proper trucking company, a formal trucking company. So then an owner operator as an independent contractor, they go and they contract with one company that already has their motor carrier authority, and then that company then is responsible for the safety and compliance of that driver and that equipment. So,
Okay.
and so where one is they're completely autonomous. They're responsible for all their compliance, and the other one is there's a company that they lease to that's responsible for that compliance. So,
All right, perfect. And then that's directly in line with what you were explaining about the changes in California that could be potentially affecting other parts of the country at some point. And so, yeah, I don't know if I interrupted your train of thought, but
no, no. Actually, this is something that's been on a lot of people's mind in the last couple of years.
yeah.
So the biggest difference being that safety and compliance thing. So now with California, I their law is about and being as independent contractors, it affects more than just trucking. There's been court battles over, Uber and Lyft drivers and other type of independent contractors. But California's not the only one that's done it. It's just been in the news more, and then there's been more court battles. New Jersey has had certain types too. standards for years about that, and then had constant fights with certain companies and certain type contractors. And recently in the news, we would see where, well, XPO Logistics, who sold their intermodal division to um, STG Logistics a year or two ago, they were already in a battle with one of the companies that they or one of their subsidiaries in here in New Jersey with the Department of Labor about that same status. They were doing a lease to own program, and the uh, the drivers weren't making any money. Some week it was ups and downs with all the costs and everything. They felt like they weren't getting paid, so they contacted the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor started this whole audit of their system and how they were doing it to try to make a determination whether they were independent contractors or whether they were employees. So then STG, they bought out the company, and they took on that liability when they bought the company. So recently there was a determination by the Department of Labor and the state's attorney general about those particular or that thing. And that thing is that they ruled that they were actually employees. So then the company is being fined with that. So now STG is making a change, at least here in the New Jersey market that I know of, where they're going to be requiring all their owner operator independent contractors to get their own DOT and MC number in order to be able to work for them in this marketplace. So, and that's where this manual that I'm writing comes in. So, you know, when you're starting, first, let me clarify that I'm writing it from a couple of standpoints. From anybody who's has time in the industry, you know, they're going to understand some basic things, who they're going to work for. So because they already are a veteran of the industry, they understand, and as owner operators, they understand the market, what market they're going to go into, the niche, and all this kind of stuff. However, when they get into the next phase of business plan, of making certain that they have the right money available to get their own authority, means much more expenses. It also means that their revenue is going to go up because they're going to be getting paid a little bit more than they would as an independent contractor. So,
Okay.
but that's where the starting a single trucking company in the U.S. A comprehensive manual. That's the title I have right now. Is going to walk through essentially the 10 basic scenarios that get them up and running. So from market research to the business plan to the financials and being able to or the legal structure of what type of corporation they want, and I'm going to go through and explain all those different things in fine detail within the manual, as well as we do these online talks here. We're going to, over the next several weeks or 10 weeks or whatever, we're going to discuss in depth each of those 10 areas and what they can do. That way we have some videos backing that up. And then my contact information is also there. So for anybody who wants to be able to do this, they can you know, read the manual and do it themselves, or they can contact me and I can help guide them along the way, or any number of other consultants that happen to work in the same marketplace. But
Yeah.
you know, I thought it is a good time to be putting this out with all the number and what's changing. Let's do a final one thing as to get this thought out of my mind. With in the Biden administration, the new head of the Federal Department of Labor is also trying to enforce or change the rules on independent contractor status. So I don't want to go into the political reasons why I believe that it's happening, but you know, it still could change, as you stated earlier, more than just California or New Jersey. It could change the laws, particularly if they get reelected, in how that status is, you know, is treated in the future. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's what we're all about, planning ahead. I also think too that for people who are outside the industry and monitoring when to get in, I kind of think of it like the way I imagine it is like they're double dutching, and they're trying to figure out, should I go in now? How about now? But there's always, and I preface this in most of the conversations that I have, logistics, like anything else, there's ups and downs. I think the point of having someone like you on the team is to help navigate and plan for the ups and downs that come along with being in this industry. And again, that's just life and that's everything else. So, um, last week we dove in to a pretty general, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, we dove in pretty general overview on starting a trucking company, and we fielded some questions that I've gotten in combination with some that you have as well. But we haven't gotten very specific to follow the manual setup that you have, as you mentioned, in 10 different chapter breakdowns. So, where would you like to start today?
Well, that's a real good question. We could briefly go over the 10 areas, and that I actually published an article. So if they were to anybody who's listening would go to LinkedIn and go to my page and then look at my articles that I've written, they'll find an article that outlines the 10 areas. So if we can quickly reiterate that, then we'll go into and get a little more in depth in some into some of let's start with the research and planning. So, so the first thing, as we're looking at it, and we first go through the 10 areas that we're looking at. The first is research and planning, to understand the market that they're planning to go in, what niche they want to serve, see whether they want to be straight truck, tractor, trailer, power only. Are they going to do LTL? Do they want to do line haul areas? So do they want to have their own authority? If they have their own authority, are they flatbed tanker? What is their experience? What is their knowledge? I would suggest anybody that's new to the industry start as a driver, getting some training under and getting the driving part out of the way so that they don't have to worry about learning at the same time as they're starting to manage a company. So, and there's plenty of ways to do that, from truck driving school to, signing on to one of the large carriers where they'll train you in their own school and getting a little bit of experience, a couple of years anyways, because the insurance companies will be looking for that sort of thing. So, and I'm going back. I have this other thought in my head. So let me go back to one other thing. So before we start getting into any further into that, let's talk about why I think that I'm recommending that a lot of owner operators today. Oh, looky there! You pulled it up for us. So,
I did.
so I wanted a lot of owner operators today, particularly like with the California law and what's happening with New Jersey with St. George or STG Logistics right now. I recommend. Let me bring in. I'm going to bring in one more point. Besides those laws and the way the Department of Labor is working, there's also the way the freight broker industry is working, the way the load boards are changing, the way with machine learning and dispatching, and the way technology has gone. We can see it's much easier as a single truck owner operator with their own authority to have to be able to find loads and essentially dispatch themselves and work the load boards, work with the different brokers, and work with the different apps in order to find their things. Also, we have a lot of what we call independent dispatchers who work with multiple independent owner operators with their own motor
Yeah.
carrier, and they do all the back office things. So
Yeah.
one of the things that HTG and as we continue to move forward, besides getting a strong freight database and keeping equipment moving, is that we want to focus with independent owner operators with their own authority, and so that we can continue to do that same thing where we can help them manage and run their business on one side. At the same time, we can help them with their loads and their dispatching in order for them to be able to focus and grow their business. So, and that's just one of those things that I want to that HTG is about. It's not just about bringing in independent freight agents and being able to have and grow that part of the business. It's about consulting with different businesses and working together in a collaborative environment so that everybody, all the independents, people who want to work for themselves as entrepreneurs can then grow their business and have guidance from a team of experts within
Yep.
the industry. So
And
I
you know,
wanted to
it's fun.
clarify that first.
I think
Go
that's a
ahead.
really, really great clarification point to make, because in one of the conversations that I was having this week with somebody, um, and I may have mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that they were working with a company that said they can get them started, pretty much do everything for them and get them the loads. But to me, that makes my hair stand a little bit. I start paying attention because I'm like, well, what kind of loads are they guaranteeing? You know, are they just going to send you to the lowest margin loads and you don't even know what you're getting yourself into? And that's where it comes down to exploring different verticals, understanding that the margins can be better in certain verticals, working for certain companies, and then helping these drivers and also the brokerage to go after this higher margin cargo. And to me, when you're starting a business and you're doing it with very little to no resources, it might seem like going out to the market and just pulling in customers is the best thing to do. However, when you're a single owner operator, I think it's worth the time and the effort to be diligent and onboard customers that are going to support the long term needs of your business. Because essentially, what I find ends up happening, and the person that I was speaking to as well, is that when there's no business lined up, or when new owner operators don't understand how to navigate the different verticals um, in shipping, and understand that certain ones are, they're going to have higher margins. Essentially, they enter the industry, they're discouraged by their low margins, lack of success, overwork, potential burnout for little return, and then they exit the industry and they say they had a bad experience, it wasn't a good time to enter, when really I think we can change that narrative by providing the resources at the front end of this process to sort of save them that discouragement and disappointment, if that makes sense.
It does. You know, you bring up a very good point. There's that's why I recommend that somebody who's not been in the industry um, actually go to work for another carrier first. So, and that being part of their plan,
Yeah.
and that way they can understand what it means to be a truck driver first and foremost. Because no matter what business they get into, or what vertical they get into, uh, if you understand what the driver lifestyle, the driver goes through within that from the different areas, whether you're a local driver, LTL, regional driver, like a line haul driver, whether you're or an OTR or over the road driver that runs
Yeah.
long distance, having that driver's perspective and understanding of what it means to be a truck driver first is something I think that's paramount in getting into the industry. So to go and make the investment and think that the lifestyle and everything that you're getting ready to do, it's tough. There's different areas. Flatbed requires more work but gets more money. Reefer, household goods, moving and storage. So moving companies,
Yeah.
they have higher margins, but there's also a lot more backbreaking work involved in those with the flatbed. Tanker is more specialized. Tanker hazmat is even more things that you have to do along those ways, and having a better understanding and more experience. So
Yeah.
there's so many areas to get into and work in. So if you think that you want to work local, a good place to start might be getting an idea about what a courier does,
Mm.
and then working your way up from being a van to a straight truck to a tractor.
Yeah.
I think that there's companies out there that actually do that, that start people that's new to the industry at one level, particularly younger people entering, because you can start as a courier soon at 18 or so, as soon as we can get the license on and start in a van, and then you can work your way up. In a couple of years you can get into the straight truck as a class B with hazmat, than to working your way to a Class A, so that you have the experience, so that you could then become, by the time you're 25, you can have some experience and knowledge in your Class A with a couple of years of experience on your belt as a driver. So I think that having that plan about how to get into the industry, and then what time you want to spend. Are you looking to start a trucking company, as you named this today's show, Hall of Fame, growing a trucking empire? You got to start with one piece of equipment, your first buy, and then you got to, it's a lot of work over and above. You got to drive that first truck, and then the second truck comes along. You hire a driver to put in your second truck. You're still driving the first truck. You still have to maintain that equipment. You still have to do all the back office compliance and insurances and everything else. So it's not a 9 to 5 job. Not even managing a company, even when you get 5, 10, 15 trucks and you're growing up along the way. You're talking about on average around 5% net margins on whatever the revenue is after you're paying all the expenses. And you're talking about working almost 24/7, depending on what niche you're in. So, and having trucks on the road 24/7. And there's constant concerns along the way about all those things, particularly when you have drivers driving your equipment. So there's always those concerns. So it is something that needs to be, in my mind, it needs to be well planned. Young people entering the market, they need to have a pathway. They need to be able to see where they can go, and what the future might bring. Whether they're thinking that in the beginning that they want to be an owner operator and start a company, or whether they just want to work their way up as a career within supply chain and logistics. There's so many pathways, but this is just one, and it's the one I know best. So, and that's where I'm starting here, and maybe we'll expand the manuals after we get there. But I think it's a good idea to paint the pathways and all the ups and downs for people, instead of, maybe they can get an idea as a career for what it is. And it's one of the things that I think that the industry doesn't do well, is paint our path to a career in transportation and trucking particular. So
I agree. I could not agree more, Bob. And that even goes into, our mission to mentor. And I think, when they say knowledge is power, I think it's also wealth too, right? Like, if we can share these tips and tricks with people, and also be able to shorten or shrink the learning curve and get people to their success faster, I think that that's so important for our industry, especially as we'll be welcoming in, the new generation. And so yeah, that's super important. So you noticed before that I did pull up your article. And it's been up on the screen for a little bit, and I will take a brief pause to say, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. We will answer them as they come in. Let us know that you're here. We're happy you're able to join us. So Bob put together this article, starting a single truck trucking company, a comprehensive guide for aspiring owner operators. Within here, he mentioned that there are 10 points. We're talking about the research and planning portion. And as we go on and continue the series over the next 10 weeks or so, we'll go into these other ones, which is legal structure, licensing and permits, insurance, financing and budgeting, equipment, ops, compliance, marketing and networking, and growth and expansion. Now, this is just a very, I would say, brief compared to what I've seen in terms of the content that Bob can put together in this area. And so to be able to kind of dive into these a little more one-on-one, I think is really good. So we talked so far. We've spent some time, in my opinion, talking more about market research so far, and the importance of it. So I think that from there, we can hop right into the business plan side of it, and why it's important to create the detailed business plan that you mentioned here, which would outline goals, target market, services, pricing strategies, and financial projections, and how it's useful in seeking financing. Because I think that's another, that seeking financing piece is often misunderstood, but it's so, so important, as we've learned on our or as I've learned on the journey with HTG. And so I'm glad that you included that in there, because I think that's super important.
So do I. To try to just wing it, it might be okay uh, for some of us. When we wing things without any formal training, and we just go out there and do it, it takes a lot longer to come to the realization. I think having the plan will speed things up. So, and I could definitely have used this in my career to speed up. Where I how long it took me to get to a place to be able to even consider writing this. So, and I, and each week as we target, like so, after today's session, I will publish an outline of what will be chapter one on the research and planning
Mm.
on LinkedIn. Now, that being said, the book will be a lot more in depth in each sector. So outlining a little bit more, or more than just an outline. It'll go into each bullet point under each section. Will go into a lot more detail about how to get there, rather than just an outline of this is what we should do, and now you're on your own. So I'll go into a
Yeah,
lot more detail in the book. So
awesome.
uh, as far as a business plan goes, I got the little thing there: create a detailed business plan outlining the goals, target market, services, pricing strategy, financial projections. When we go into and think about each of those categories, right? So the goals is the number one thing. We always need to have goals, and goals are not permanent, laid in stone. They should always be a bit fluid. Things change, interests change along the way. So keeping an open mind when you say your goals. So set a big goal and then break that goal down into steps so that you can each step is attainable. And then that allows you to, after you accomplish that first goal, is the second goal where you want to be, or do you want to make some minor changes? And then that way, I mean, there's so many ways to get to the final goal that you can have a pathway that's best suited for your skill set and your knowledge base, and then your likes and dislikes. So then, uh, after you map those goals, then the target market is would be the next most important. And when I say target market, I'm talking about the client you want to serve. So the client you want to serve is going to, or from your history, your knowledge of everything, the client you want to serve is going to dictate which niche within trucking that you'll want to go, or transportation. So do you want to be that courier? Do you want to be an LTL straight truck doing local work? Do you want to be a straight truck doing hot shot or expedite freight? So and then so with that, then you can get into that the market will determine what services that you want to give. So each one of these things are planned out. So now, as you go into the cycle, and pricing strategy would be next. So after you determine your market and the services that you're going to give, now you need to figure out what the current rates are within the within that market, and then move that forward to design your pricing strategy, which will go into your financial projections. So, and then as we formalize a business plan, we need to make certain that you've written an executive summary, or a pie in the sky, that goal, that idea that you have, and how a brief summary of how you want to get there. So, and then
Yeah.
you want to go from that executive summary right into a company description, describing your company and its services, the location, the ownership style, the legal structure, your history, your experience, and if you're going to have any team members that you're going to bring into it right away. Usually it's a single truck, so it's just yourself. So, but you want to make certain that you have that. So your resume and experience are important. Your financial projections, your legal structure are important as it pertains to getting financing. So, okay. Do we have any questions up to this point that we can?
No questions, but what I will say is that listening, as I'm listening to you talk about this, right, I could see um, someone potentially thinking, well, how am I gonna figure out, what the pricing is on certain services? And I think that's the benefit of working with someone that has a freight brokerage like you, because you're in touch with the market. You're talking to carriers regularly. The operations is running. You have more than a few type of services that are being offered currently, so you can speak direct to the differentiation and you can tap into it to help um, prospective business owners figure that piece out.
Well, it's also whether it's uh, whether you have pay a consultant to help you, or whether you have people that are experienced uh, mentors that you
Yeah.
can lean on to help you with these things. Always, it's best to have a group of people that are experienced, and introducing yourself to people. So when you start doing the research, some of your research should be about meeting people within the industry, not necessarily in the niche you want to go into per se, but people that have a number of years of experience. Myself, you, some of the other people that I work with, other people on LinkedIn, getting into those groups, being able to ask questions and have, so you can get that type of understanding. That's part of the research, would be getting into that in order to be able to do your financial insights, so to speak.
Awesome.
So,
Good tip. That's an awesome tip.
okay, so let's see. As we go into, and then, okay, so the next item is in the business plan, would be your market analysis, and the market analysis of what we were just talking about. That's where you're leaning on people, where you're doing the research for size, market segmentation, the customers in those markets, the competitors in those markets. Um, so and that, all that's going to help you be able to get to those financial numbers and that
Yeah.
understanding. So,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say that you need to put uh, I mean, as you're working, if you do things in phases, if you're new to the industry and you start as a truck, and as a truck driver for another company, or if you start small and start working your way up, you're going to get a better understanding as you talk to other drivers, other owner operators. I think that the one of the great things about social media today is that you can quickly start meeting people within your industry before you ever get out there. So
Absolutely.
before you ever get out there and start working. So let's see. Um, so then the services, as we get into the area, so then that's where that same market analysis and whatnot, your own experience and the people you talk to, the way you do a market analysis and the way you do your research can help you decide where you want to go, by how much work you want to do, how much effort you want to put in, or physical labor you want to put into. The more physical labor you do in a niche, the higher the revenue is going to be. But then that's more work, that physical work that you're putting into, whether you're being a tanker that's delivering gasoline to the different stores in a local market. So they got to have an understanding that they're going to work with that. They're going to smell like that. If you're delivering hydraulic fluids in a tanker, all the little ins and outs of those things, and have an understanding of that market helps. And how you work in there. There's going to be a little bit more money there. If you're working in a refrigerated market, whether you're working in
Mhm.
a straight truck and delivering to local stores, whether it's frozen fish or frozen goods or whatever you happen to be in, uh, that's going to be more physical labor as well, because you're going to end up having to break a lot of freight down and do inside deliveries and those kind of things. Because you can't just set it outside or bring it down to them. You got to make certain it's put into a freezer and that. So there's more physical labor. Just like if you're doing local moving and storage, or even long haul moving, household relocation services, or office relocation, there's a lot of backbreaking work in that. As you load that stuff up, you got to learn how to maximize your space with all the different things, how to wrap, how to protect, all these things that go along with these different niches that you might work in. So, you
Yeah.
know, some of the places, some of the things would require the understanding the use of the equipment. Dump trailers, dump trucks. You got to learn how to do those things. Whether and then find a niche within that market. Each piece of and type of equipment has different niches within it. You could be hauling asphalt and delivering it as roads are built or parking lots are built, and that requires the being able to utilize your equipment in a specialized way. Being able to move and dump the load into a paver at the same time is different than just driving down the street as an Amazon driver and delivering door to door. Each one requires physical labor, but it's or knowledge and skill using the equipment. Just like if you went to a different market or a different line of work altogether in heavy equipment
Yeah.
operation, you tend to specialize in one piece of equipment, even if you can run multiple. So
Yeah.
it's so figuring out that market that you want to be in. Then from there, you need to figure out how you're going to get your customers. Are you going to use load boards? Are you going to sell locally? Are you going to market yourself locally? Well, there's a bunch of websites for that, depending on what you do, that can help you market to your area of expertise. For instance, when everybody knows Angie's List, or Angie as they call it today, it's not just about household things. There's so many different things in there. If you wanted to be a dump truck driver, then you could get certain jobs through that. If you want to be some kind of handyman or whatever, there's so many different things that you can do and different ways of finding things out there. I think there's one called Alignable that has a big transportation market to be able to find local companies that might need your services. Rather than just going out and purchasing databases and starting to do cold calling, trying to figure out what you want to do. There's market research is important in order
Yeah.
to be able to create your sales and then be able to create your budget. So, which takes us into the financial plan, I think, as we see the financing and budgeting.
Yeah.
So now, once we get into that, that's also the next item. The equipment is important in the financing and planning. I think I skipped right over insurances. So, but you have to choose your equipment. You have to choose your financing and everything in order to be able to kind of figure out what type of insurance you're going to be putting on, what type of authority you're going to have. So some of these things, they kind of, the sequence that I put it in is kind of might be the way that we're looking at it, but we
Hmm.
also have to do some of that research in order to be able to figure out all those different little things. So, and that's where that purchase, or whether you're going to lease the equipment as you're going down through that. And then you have to, at the same time, you need to calculate, are you going to do new equipment? Or are you going to do used equipment? So you need to figure out your maintenance plan and your budgeting for all these things. So as
Absolutely.
we think about financing and budgeting, we got to think about more than just operating the company, because when you're jumping into that, you got to figure out how much money you're going to need to live on. Where you're at personally. Are you single and you're going to live in your truck? If or do you have a family as you invest in this company and do a startup? So how much money do you need to live personally? If you're living not in the truck, you need to have personal expenses, money for your personal expenses and your family if you have one. So in order to be able to grow, so there's so much more to the financing and planning and budgeting than just the company itself. So we want to
Yeah.
always think about having how much money, how long is it going to take before you really start making money? Is it going to take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months before it's you have it there? So you want to make certain that you have some cash reserves for personal, as well as cash reserves for uh, you know um, expenses you can't even fathom, particularly if you're buying used equipment. Things can break down more, where you have warranties and stuff, or a new or lease equipment, or a new equipment that you buy. Some of the new equipment nowadays, you're talking about, you know, uh, most tractors you can't get for less than 120,000. Dump trucks or any kind of, if you're going to buy your own trailer, you might be looking upwards of 200, 250,000, even more, depending on how much you put into it, how much you want into that equipment, and how specialized it is. So, there's a lot to think about when we get into finance and budgeting. So,
Yeah.
and I'll go into all that in more in depth when we start talking more about that, or getting into that detail. We'll talk about how we plan that, you know. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really good. That was a really great breakdown. Thank you for sharing that, Bob. And then I guess when the one of the final things we can talk about too is just we can touch upon how this is useful to seek financing. I don't think we really touched upon that part just yet. I know that's probably a little more in depth than, but like, yeah, I think it's worth chatting about.
Well, that is financing is something that's difficult. If you have a great credit history, you might be able to do things. A lot of finance companies, if you're financing the equipment, they're still looking for you to have a couple years experience in there somehow. So if you're looking to do a fresh startup, to uh, your experience is going to be important. Your personal credit rating is going to be important. How you structure your company is going to be important. Is it going to be a sole proprietor? Is it going to be an LLC with limited liability? Is it going to be an S corp? Is it going to be a C corp? All these things are part of the legal structure and registration you have there is number two, are also part of the plan that we're building. So that we have this understanding. So there's so many things to go into. When it's a secured loan on the equipment, it's your credit history is important. Your FICO score is important. How much cash reserves you have as you're doing that can be important. How much money you're going to put down can be important. But it's a secure loan that's based on the value of the equipment. So that's easier to get than, say, an unsecured line of credit or an unsecured loan that for general use of growing a business, which typically the minimum you need to have is 3 months of bank statements and how much money you've made in 3 months. Most are going to want 6 months or more. A bank wouldn't be. You would be looking at alternative financing at that point. You wouldn't be going to a bank because they could require much more information and much more time in business before they go for a loan. But there's a lot of alternatives, and that's something that we would discuss in a lot more detail, a lot more in depth of the different ways to find financing.
Yep.
So to be able to find a company that can help you do the entire package, or somebody can help walk you through the process as a consultant, somebody who can help you with all these different categories. I think that's one of the things, as me with HTG, as a consultant, I'm not necessarily looking to charge somebody by the number of hours that I work with them on. I'm looking to work with them on a long-term basis. For me, I'm to have an understanding of how we do financing, how we do budgeting, how we do insurances. In all aspects. There's so many different insurances that we need to get into. That's why I'm a licensed insurance consultant in all lines of insurance. I'm a licensed financial advisor as a consultant. And what I do is that I personally don't charge like an hourly rate or a flat rate. So when I make certain I marry people up with the proper services that's going to fit their needs, so that then I make off whatever referral commissions or whatever. So that I've created a structure that allows the person to make some decisions without having to consider how or why or where and when I'm going to get paid. And I think that's my way of giving back after all my years of doing this, with working within the trucking industry and logistics altogether. Is to help people and mentor people. And I love to do that. And it's not, for me, it's not always about the money and trying to sell. It's about making certain that people are doing it right. People are benefiting from my knowledge, and that I can see and help and give back to others within the trucking community. So
That's amazing.
that might
That's
be a good
amazing.
note to finish on for
I
now.
think so, honestly. It's like a perfect note to finish on. I appreciate your time today, Bob. You've definitely covered a lot, even though this is just the the first and more to come. Next week, we'll talk more about the legal structure and registration piece of it. So, of course, please join us Wednesday at 9 a.m. If you guys have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out. Leave them in the comments, send us DMs, whatever works best for you. We're always happy to answer any questions about the conversations that we're having. And with that, thanks again so much, Bob, for sharing your insight with
Oh,
us today.
thank you for having me. So,
Of course. And I look forward to continuing this conversation.
all right, that's great. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And well,
Yes.
my contact information is everywhere. So anybody that wants to talk to me, feel free to contact me. Send me a DM in LinkedIn. Scan that barcode up there. If you take that down, they can see the full barcode. You can scan
Oh,
that,
yeah.
or the QR code. You can
There
scan
we
that.
go.
That gives you all my personal information about how to contact me and everything. So feel free
Awesome.
to contact me. So.
Sounds great.
And like my page, like HTG. Find me
Yeah.
on YouTube, on everywhere. You can find me under HTG or Hatchway Trade Group and get in touch with me. Thank you very
Sounds great.
much.
Thanks, Bob. Bye bye.
All right, you're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.